quick. I know a lot of y'all already seen it, but this is for the ones who probably haven't seen it just yet. Please, can we go through this?
Everybody's a free agent this year. We all made sure that when we signed our last contracts that they ended with 2025 because we knew that we were coming into a new CBA in 2026. So this year for the WNBA, which is why we're even trying to negotiate even more right now, is because we
27.5%. That's the number the WNBA Players Association just put on the table in their counterproposal. And if you're thinking that sounds like a compromise, let me walk you through the math that has league owners shaking their heads. Because this isn't just about percentages. It's about understanding how revenue actually works in a league that's still figuring out if it can turn a profit.
I'm sorry. All right. Defined as revenue before deducting expenses, okay? Over the course of the agreement, including 25% and less than a 9.5 million salary cap in year one. Now, the reason this is so funny to me, man, as you can see, if we go down, this is what they proposed before sending this counter proposal, all right? So in its previous proposal from December, the union asked for the players to receive an average of 31%. So they went from 31% to 27.
Here's what happened Tuesday. The WNBPA submitted their counterproposal to the league, and according to Phillips reporting, she's been all over this story, the union made what they're calling concessions on revenue sharing and housing. They dropped their ask from 31% down to 27.5% of gross revenue. That's revenue before expenses get deducted. And they lowered their year one salary cap demand from $10.5 million down to $9.5 million. On paper, that looks like movement. They're negotiating, right? But here's the problem. When you only generate 42% of the total revenue pool to begin with, asking for 27.5% of that 42% creates a sustainability crisis. You're essentially asking for more than half of what your league actually brings in before anyone pays for travel, arenas, staff, or operations.
talking about teams that are flopping in the NBA. I don't want to hear none of that shit.
Now, I didn't necessarily catch this part. For some reason, I only saw, I think it was like the ending of her rant. Natasha. You didn't just compare what y'all are going through. You compare that to all the other leagues, fam. The Brooklyn Nets, they made a profit last year. They made a profit last year. Look, Natasha Cloud is a good player. I love her as a player, man. She's a good player. But, man, this is not what the owner wants. This is not what Basil wanted, man.
And this is where Natasha Cloud's rant from earlier this week starts to make a lot more sense. Not because she's right about the economics, we'll get to that, but because it reveals how the players are actually thinking about this negotiation. She went live talking about how they've been waiting 8 months for updates, how the league keeps increasing valuations while trying to depreciate their value, and how every professional league loses money somewhere. But that last part, that's where the logic falls apart completely. She specifically mentioned the Brooklyn Nets, saying you can look at their expenses and see they're losing money, except the Nets made a profit last season. The NBA as a whole generated billions in profit. This isn't comparable, and that comparison is exactly why these negotiations have stalled.
This is not what Basil wants. All right? At least that's what it seems like. But let's continue. I mean, she really said other leagues are losing money. This is crazy work, man. The NBA is literally making billions of profit, billions of dollars in the profit margins. Come on, fam.
What does happen for owners, like, I remember in our meeting at All-Star this year, the Seattle owner came up and was like, you don't understand, we lose all this money, X, Y, and Z. And I just, like, we were like, girl, first of all, you get a write-off because it's a real estate investment for you. So already money off. You rent it out, you sign it, you have signage all over the building, you rent it out for leagues to be played with that you don't think that we know that you're getting excess money on, and all the other shit that
Cloud went further. She talked about how the Seattle Storm owner stood up in their All-Star meeting and complained about losing money, and the players responded by pointing out tax write-offs and arena rental income. And look, those are real revenue streams, but they're not equivalent to what's happening with league operations. A tax write-off doesn't pay player salaries. Arena rental income during off nights doesn't cover the cost of chartering flights for the entire season. The fundamental issue is structure. The WNBA isn't its own independent entity the way other leagues are. It's subsidized by the NBA, supported by private investors who are often dual owners, and still building toward profitability. When the NBA splits revenue 50-50 with players, that's because the NBA generates all of its own revenue and then divides it. The WNBA is asking for 27.5% of a revenue pool that's partially funded by external sources.
But your league is feeding off of another league. And then not only do y'all have that going on, but you have the private investors who are also league team owners, who are also team owners in the NBA and the WNBA, who are doubling off what's coming in. So y'all situation is just way different, fam. So yes, that's why y'all are getting this of this, because you have people in your cookie jar. Y'all literally have to become your own business. They would literally have to restructure this entire thing in order to...
Here's where Cloud's argument about education gets interesting. She said this is a league full of women who graduated from elite colleges, and the owners are treating them like they don't understand basic economics. She mentioned Fee and Stewie starting Unrivaled as proof they understand business, but understanding how to start a league and understanding the economics of collective bargaining in a subsidized sports league are completely different skill sets. Having a college degree doesn't mean you're equipped to negotiate a CBA. And more importantly, the proof isn't in the pudding yet. Unrivaled is in its first season. We don't know if it's profitable. We don't know if it's sustainable beyond the initial investment phase.
See anything close to what they're trying to get. Honestly, I'm just being honest. I'm not even trying to dump down on them. I think this entire structure will have to change.
What sense does that make? What is... No, I'll be damned. I will be damned. Because I've played in this league since 2015. I'm going into year 11. And from the time that I came into this league until now, we have blown the roof off the bid. We have blown it. We have blown it off the... You could go back a few years ago and be like, nah, we can't give it to you. And we'd be like, we understand, because we're not there yet. That's what we did a few years ago. We're not there yet. So we're going to take the short end of the stick. But when we get there, we're not taking the short end of the stick. We're not doing it.
Cloud also made a point about free agency being frozen. She's right that this creates a legitimate problem. Every player structured their contracts to expire in 2025, specifically because they knew a new CBA was coming in 2026. Now nobody can negotiate because there's no salary cap framework to base contracts on. The expansion draft can't happen. Team building is paralyzed. That's real leverage for the players. But it's also why the owners aren't rushing to accept a proposal that could destabilize the league's financial future. Because here's what nobody's saying out loud. The sustainability question isn't answered yet. Yes, Caitlin Clark drove massive ratings in 2024. Yes, attendance jumped. Yes, new media deals brought in more revenue. But was that a Caitlin Clark bubble, or is that the new baseline?
Again, so...
Well, the thing is, Cloud, a few years ago, you didn't have Caitlin Clark in the league. And I know a lot of people going to say, oh, man, here you go with the Caitlin Clark. But it's just facts, man. It's just facts. We've seen the numbers, all right? We've seen the numbers. It's one player that's doing it all. So it's like the sustainability, it don't seem like it's there just yet. Now, I do think if y'all keep going, you have great players coming in who might grab more attention. I will see if y'all were blowing it out of the roof for the past 10 years. Then it's like, okay, yeah, y'all need to get them their money. But it's been, 2 years? Y'all had 2 years of where you was blowing it out of the roof. But at the same time, y'all still weren't really making a profit. But that's mainly why the owners are like, we don't know just yet, because they are questioning the sustainability.
This is the tension. Cloud says they've been blowing the roof off for years, but that's not quite accurate. They had 2 strong years, with 2024 being exceptional specifically because of one player's impact. Before that, the league was losing money annually. The previous CBA in 2020 gave players significant increases, and they acknowledged at the time that they were taking a smaller share because the league wasn't there yet financially. Now they're arguing the league is there. But the owners are looking at the same numbers and seeing a league that still didn't turn a profit in 2024 despite record viewership. They're seeing a league where one team minus the Indiana Fever drove a disproportionate amount of the attention and revenue. They're asking, what happens when Caitlin Clark has an off year? What happens when the novelty fades? What happens if the 2025 rookie class doesn't generate the same buzz?
And do y'all think that this is a serious offer? I don't think they have a chance of getting this, man. I'm just keeping it a grand. I know people gonna label me as a hater and this and that and the third. Oh, he's misogynistic and he don't care about women and all this nonsense, man. But it's just logic. It just feel like it's failing right here, man. It feel like it's failing. And Natasha Cloud, once again, is giving out nonsensical takes, asinine behavior going on in front of the camera. Like, come on, Natasha. Just stop, man. Just stop talking about it. You said you signed an NDA. Just stop talking about it. Just stop. Just stop. Leave it alone, all right? Leave it alone. Talk about Unrivaled. You're enjoying yourself at Unrivaled. You like Unrivaled. Keep that going. Don't talk about this CBA anymore. Please, man. Please. Y'all let me know in the comment section how y'all feel about it. I love y'all.
And this brings us back to that 27.5% number. The players see it as a compromise. They came down from 31%. They lowered the year one salary cap by $1 million. They're showing flexibility. But from the owner's perspective, this isn't flexibility. It's asking for a slightly smaller piece of a pie that isn't big enough yet. Because when you break down the actual dollars, 27.5% of 42% of total revenue before expenses leaves almost nothing for league operations. You can't invest in marketing. You can't upgrade facilities. You can't expand to new markets. You're running a break-even operation at best, and one bad media cycle away from contraction. The comparison to other leagues keeps coming up, and it needs to stop. The NBA splits revenue 50-50 because the NBA is a mature, profitable league with established revenue streams and zero external subsidies. The WNBA is asking for 27.5% while still receiving financial support from the NBA and private investors. Those aren't the same negotiating positions. Here's what makes this particularly frustrating for everyone involved. The players aren't wrong that the league's value is increasing, new media deals, expansion fees from Golden State and Toronto, growing attendance. These are real indicators of growth. But growth and profitability are different things. You can be growing rapidly and still losing money. In fact, that's exactly when you're most likely to be losing money, because you're investing in that growth. The players want to be paid based on the league's potential. The owners want to pay based on the league's current financial reality, and the gap between those two positions is massive. It's the difference between we're going to be huge and we're not there yet. Both can be true simultaneously. Cloud's frustration about waiting 8 months for updates is valid. The league should be communicating more clearly about where negotiations stand. But that frustration doesn't change the underlying math. And the math is what's going to determine whether this deal gets done or whether we're looking at a work stoppage. Because that's the real threat here. If they can't reach an agreement, there's no framework for the 2026 season. No draft. No free agency. No expansion. The entire league is frozen. And while that gives the players leverage, it also puts them in a position where they're gambling with their careers. These aren't NBA salaries, where players can afford to sit out a season. Most WNBA players are living paycheck to paycheck even with overseas income. So where does this go? The owners have to respond to this counterproposal, and their response will tell us everything. If they come back with something in the 15 to 20% range, we've got a negotiation. If they stick closer to their original offer, we're headed for a real standoff. And if we're being honest, the players probably need to get realistic about the structure issue. The real solution might not be a higher revenue percentage. It might be restructuring how the league operates entirely, making it truly independent from the NBA, bringing in different types of investors, creating new revenue streams that are league-owned rather than shared. But that's a much bigger conversation than just negotiating percentages in a CBA. What we're watching right now is a players' union that believes they've earned a massive raise based on 2 years of growth, negotiating with owners who are asking, can you sustain this? And until both sides can agree on whether the growth is real or temporary, they're negotiating from completely different realities. One side sees a league that's arrived, the other sees a league that's still building. And 27.5% might sound like a compromise, but it's still asking for something the current structure can't support. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. If you were an owner who's been subsidizing this league for years, watching it finally start to gain traction, would you bet everything on 2 years of Caitlin Clark-driven growth? Or would you want to see another season or two of proof before you committed to a deal that could bankrupt the operation? Because that's what we're really talking about here. Not whether the players deserve more money. They probably do. But whether the league can afford to give them what they're asking for and still survive. Let me know what you think in the comments, because this negotiation is far from over.